Hey guys, hi. This is Salwa. Welcome back to Real Talk with Salwa. Again, this is a continuation of all the episodes we're going to be recording today. Like I said, we usually record many episodes at once and then we keep releasing them in bits to save time because we can also get very busy sometimes. Anyway, I'm excited because this is the e-learning series where we are learning about so many different things and we are talking about very pertinent topics for everyone. I'm sorry if I sound weird. I have some flu and cough, but it shall be well. Anyway, so today we've been talking about earlier. I was talking about this bank case where it was held that if your phone gets stolen and you don't report to your bank, then if anything happens, if someone transacts through your phone, then the bank is not responsible because it had no way of knowing that it wasn't you transacting, especially if the credentials that the person is using and the information is the correct information. So make sure that whenever you lose your phone or if something happens to your phone or bank credentials, whatever it is, if it is compromised, make sure you inform your bank so that you can relieve yourself of your responsibility, and then it will be the responsibility of the bank or the duty of the bank to protect your money. Please do not forget to do that because sometimes people forget. And also report immediately, because if you take so long to report and something happens again, the bank will not be responsible. In that case that I talked about, it took 1 month for the lady to report to the bank, and therefore by the time she reported, it was a bit too late for the bank to do anything about it. Anyway, moving on, I want us to talk about something that is very common among business people, a question that very many business people ask themselves: to formalize or not to formalize? I'm a lawyer, so my advice would be based on what is going to get me paid, which is usually to formalize, because once businesses are formalized, then it means that lawyers then have work to do. Anyway, what is formalization? So formalization is where a business go through the formal processes to establish itself. By formal processes, we mean registration with the business registration. URSB is our business registration agency. So it is where all businesses are registered. It is URSB. However, depending on what business you're dealing with, you might have to register with several other departments of government or several other administrative bodies. It is not uncommon, depending on what business you're doing. There are businesses that actually have to register like through very many different agencies, like 5 different agencies, and you have to be registered with all of them to be able to do your business. But basically, the process of formalizing is the process of registering your business, getting your URA registration, that is the registration for taxes, getting your NSSF registration, that is for social security, registration to get a license, that is for you to be allowed to conduct your business, and then all other licenses that you may be required to operate your business. Again, sometimes it depends on the nature of the business. There are some businesses where there are so many other approvals you need, while some businesses you only need a business license and then you can start operating. That is formalization. The opposite of that is to not formalize, to just stay informal, which is like our biggest uh, percentage in Uganda. It is the informal sector. Businesses are not registered, they don't have structures, they are not known anywhere, they deal in things and they don't have like even books of account, nothing. They are just surviving on the knowledge of the owners and how the owners view uh, the system and what works for them. So that is formalization versus not formalization. Uganda is a predominantly informal sector, which means that for very many businesses or people, we act informally. We don't formalize. But the young generation, the Gen Zs and the millennials who are in business have started to actually want to formalize, set up structures, do business in a way that they are visible and they are known and they have books of account and they have structures. So it is beginning to change. And there are pros and cons to each of these things. It's not that one is better than the other, but each one comes with its pros and cons. It's up to usually you as the business owner to determine What do you feel is better for you? What will work better for you? So basically, that is it. So businesses always grapple with the question of, should I formalize or not? There are many businesses, even for us lawyers, when someone comes to you and they want to start a business, usually they ask themselves, should I do this? Should I register? What are the implications of registering? What are the implications of setting up an actual company or a business or registering a business name? Or, because everything comes with, like I've said, pros and cons. So you have to explain everything to their clients so that they appreciate what they're getting into. Some people don't, and then clients end up registering and then defaulting on their obligations and getting in trouble. That is also not good. Anyway, this is what comes with formalization, which is the registration, going through the formal processes to set up a business. One is you have legal protection because you become recognized under the law. So if you formalize your business, if you become registered with URSB, then you have legal recognition. Otherwise, you will not be known. But with the formalization, URSB knows you. You're known to be a legal entity under the law. You are known to be entitled to certain rights. You can do so much once you formalize. You can enter into contracts in your own name under company law. For example, if you formalize and then you set up a company, you're able to contract in the company name. You have limited liability. Limited liability basically means that if something happens, then you're not going to get sued as the owner of the company, but it is the company that is responsible. And then the company will be catering for the liabilities, whatever it is, on its own without involving you personally. So it gives you that legal protection, especially if you formalize as a company. But you can formalize to be something different. You can formalize and become just registered as a business name. It's also acceptable. You can formalize and become registered as a company. Limited by shares, you can formalize and be registered as a company limited by guarantee. Everything is different. We're going to have so many different topics on this. We shall come here and tell you the difference between all the different types of these business entities that I'm talking about and the pros and cons of each, so that you know what option would be best for you. Anyway, with formalization comes legal protection under the law. You're legally protected, you're recognized. If someone defaults, you can sue them, you can enter into a contract in your own name, and then that gives you some, it gives you some form of, what can I say? It's like a safety net of, I exist, I am allowed to operate legally, and therefore I can actually enforce my rights, legally. That's one. That is an upside to it. It is the best thing because as a business, you want to be able that if someone you want to be able to recover money. Like for example, if someone defaults and they don't pay you, you should be able to sue them and get your money. But if you're not formalized, if you're not registered as a business, it is going to be difficult because now you're going to have to go through a lot of pulling ropes to try and prove how you're operating, how are you doing business, if you're not formalized, how are you doing business, how are you lending people money or giving people services or goods. When you're not formal, then you have too much explaining to do, and some people just end up losing the money because they can't afford to go to court because they are scared that the court is not going to look into them. How are you operating a business like this when you don't have any formal registration? So that is what formalization comes with. Another thing is trust and growth. So with formalization comes trust. You're able to get opportunities because you can be trusted. You're a formal entity. You're recognized under the law. People will trust you to give you contracts, to give you, even when you need like a loan, or if you need goods on a loan. For example, for dealing goods, if someone is going to give you goods on a loan for you to pay later, if you're not formalized, it is difficult. But if you're a formal entity, you're registered, this person knows I can go after this entity. If it fails to pay, I can sue them, I can report them to URSB, I can recover my money through the court system. or litigation. So basically, it gives people trust in working with you rather than when you're informal. And that's why very many businesses don't even grow, because when you're informal, then people have trust issues with you. When they're dealing with you, they are looking at you as someone who can wake up and disappear because you don't have a structure, you're not registered, people don't know where to find you, people don't know how to recover from you if something goes wrong. Then it's very difficult, and that hinders growth. Okay? For businesses, it hinders growth. For very many projects, government, even in government, and by the way, I implore businesses to start looking out for those government contracts. The corruption and the politics aside, don't let it stop you from seeking out opportunities. Continue to seek opportunities because they are here for you. Go and apply for these government contracts, apply for these consultancies, supply contracts, services contracts. They are usually very many advertised in the papers. If you're a formal entity and you're registered, then you qualify. It's usually a requirement. That's why there is that pro to it. It is a requirement that you're formal for you to be able to get to these opportunities. So it helps to grow. Formalization also gives you stability. For example, if you're formally registered as a company and you're known to be a company, so a company is separate from its shareholders or the owner. It is a separate legal entity. For example, I don't want to use companies because I don't want to get sued that are known. But for example, I set up a company called, Elma, group of companies, or Elma Company Limited. And it is my company and I own it, maybe with someone else as a shareholder. Even if something happens to me, the company can continue operating. My stake in the company will move on depending on how I decide to give it out in my will. It will move on to the person I hand it to in my will, either my children or my husband or my mother or my father, anyone that I want. I can give them the stake in the company, and when I'm not here, the company will continue to operate. This person will take over and become a shareholder in my place, and the company will continue operating, which is not the case with informal businesses. For very many informal businesses, once the owner dies and they are out of the picture, it is done. It is done. And that is one downside to it. There is no stability, there is no sustainability for informal businesses. It is usually the owner is the face of the business. Once they are out of the picture, the business is done. So that is another pro for formalization. Now, usually when people talk about formalization, they focus on the cons. People always focus on the cons. People always talk about the downside to it. People talk about the bad things that come with formalization. Of course, in our political environment, it's understandable, as we're going to see. So one of the cons of formalization is it comes with costs. It is expensive to formalize a business, especially in Uganda. And I don't understand why. Actually, it is something that we need to talk about more. It is very expensive to formalize businesses in Uganda. If you want to register a company, for example, you have to have money for you to get a lawyer who is going to help you with the registration. Because if you try to do it on your own, you can very you're most likely going to make some mistakes that will affect you in the future. Some people don't know this. They don't know the implications of putting your children as shareholders. They don't know the implications of putting your parents as shareholders. Some people just say, put my mother, put my father as a shareholder, put my sibling as a shareholder. You don't know how that can affect you, especially if your business grows. Because a shareholder is a owner. So it is not just for fun, like some people think. So it is very important for us to always use lawyers when it comes to formalization and not just do things on our own. So it becomes expensive because a lawyer is going to charge you. But also the registration fees and taxes that are involved are also a bit high. You need money to be able to register these documents. You need money to pay stamp duty on the documents. That is, again, depending on what kind of business you're doing or what kind of transaction you're going to be doing through that business. There are certain businesses where you're going to keep transacting, and every transaction involves some payment of stamp duty towards the government. So that's why some people just don't even bother formalizing. But also getting licenses. Licenses are paid for. I remember when I started my consultants, I had to get a license, and I had to pay, I believe it was 75,000 or 250,000. I don't remember, but it was a sum between 100 and 250K, which is not small money. A license to operate, and you're just starting up. Some people don't have that money. So it is very expensive to formalize, and that is the downside to it. Me, I think that our government should be able to allow people to set up businesses free of cost. Because at the end of the day, if a business is set up, this person is going to be able to, they'll need a clearance from URA, they'll be able to pay taxes. Then government can collect money through the taxes that the person is going to be paying. It doesn't make sense to charge people for registering businesses. And not just small money, it is a lot of money. It is not small money for startups. Even 50,000 is a lot of money for a business that is just starting up. Some people's capital is like 100,000 or 200,000, and now you're telling them that is how much it's going to cost for them to be able to register their business. How are they going to do it then? They're going to just give up. So registration fees, licenses, taxes, very those are all amounts that make formalization difficult. But also there are costs that come with compliance. For example, if it is NSSF, if you formalize, then you have to be registered with NSSF. Register your workers, you have to pay NSSF for them. That is all money. Register them with URA, you have to pay as you earn for them. That is also money. So some people feel like that is not it. And it is quite understandable. Another downside to formalization is there is more paperwork involved. Like we've said, you have to register with so many different entities. You have to keep account of all these entities. You have to make sure that you're compliant with all these entities. URSB, you have to file your annual returns every year. With URA, you have to file your returns every year. So it all comes, even as NSSF, you have to file, you have to make sure you're making the payments every month for your employees. With your payers, you have to also make those payments every month for your employees. The money has to go out. So it comes with a lot of work. Basically, it's a lot of work, and that is a downside to formalization. Another downside formalization is it is rigid. If you set up a company, for example, there are ways in which companies transact. Companies transact through passing board resolutions that approve of a transaction. So you cannot just wake up in a company and do what you want, even though you're the owner, even though you're 100% shareholder. The directors will decide what you do. So in most cases, there is some bureaucracy because you have to wait until the directors have a meeting, they pass a resolution, the resolution is registered with URSB before you do anything. Borrow money, buy property, sell property, enter into any transaction. You have to have a resolution to approve of that transaction, especially if it's a big transaction. That's the problem with formalization. Whereas with informal companies or informal businesses, they don't have to go through that. Usually it is the owner who decides what to do. They can just wake up and do anything without consulting with anyone. But also that is also problematic because prone to mistakes, prone to errors. That is why in formal businesses you find that one mistake can just lead the business down and then it fails and closes shop. Whereas for formal businesses, they usually make decisions prudently because it's not just one person, it is the directors who are making these decisions. So it is safer when it comes to that. Um, those are the key things that I would like to note from these two different kinds of doing business, the formal way and then the informal way. So it is usually up to you to decide whether or not you're going to focus more on the pros or the cons. But what I can tell you is for many businesses that you see that have thrived and have grown, existed for 10 years, moving into 20 years, Most of those businesses are formal. They formalize. They have structures in place. They have ways that they do things the right, not the right, I don't want to say formal businesses are not doing the right thing the right way, but they are doing things in a way that is legally acceptable or legally prudent, and that is how they are able to grow and thrive because they are able to go and get loans. It's very easy for a formalized business to get a loan, and then you're able to put that money back into your business and then grow and then expand. With informal businesses, it is very difficult. You have you have to bring books of account, and then you start walking around with books, papers, and stuff. It is very, very difficult to even get money if you're an informal business. I don't even know if it is possible. You understand? So, formalization, it's a bit expensive, comes with a lot of obligations, but also it has so many benefits to it. It opens up very many opportunities. If you're looking for funding, if you're looking for people to partner with, if you're looking to grow, formalization is the way to go. But if you're looking to just survive day to day for a business for just now, to just give you like upkeep and survive on a day to day basis, then you can stick to the informal way of doing things. So it is always up to you. But I would advise you, even if you're a small business, even if you're just starting up, formalize, because you never know when that formalization is going to actually help you. You don't know who is going to look at your business and say, I have to work with this person. Have structures in place. We're going to talk about business structuring at some point. Have structures in place. It's very important. It's not okay to have a business where you're the boss, you make every decision, everything begins and ends with you. All those things create lots of conflict of interest, but also poor decision making. So we shall talk more about all this in our next episodes. I just wanted us to understand the difference between formalization and also non-formalization and the pros and cons of each. So that is it for now, and we shall talk more about this. Bye. Let me take a break.